The unwelcome guest. Sarah and Tom had been planning their getaway for months. The daily grind in the city had taken its toll, and they needed a break. They decided to book a charming old house through Airbnb in a quaint, quiet town nestled in the mountains. The listing promised rustic charm, modern amenities, and scenic views. The host, Martha, had glowing reviews for her hospitality and the house's pristine condition. As they drove up the winding road to the house, the sun began to set, casting eerie shadows through the dense forest. The house finally came into view, looking just as picturesque as the photos. An old Victorian-style mansion, it stood proudly at the end of a gravel driveway, surrounded by ancient oak trees. Martha greeted them warmly at the door. She was an elderly woman with a kind smile and twinkling eyes, though Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that there was something a bit off about her. Martha gave them a quick tour, showing them the cozy living room with a grand fireplace, the quaint kitchen, and their spacious bedroom. She pointed out the emergency numbers and house rules, then handed over the keys. "I live just down the road," Martha said. "If you need anything, don't hesitate to call." With that, she left them to settle in. The first night was uneventful. Sarah and Tom enjoyed a quiet dinner, then snuggled up by the fireplace with a glass of wine. As they drifted off to sleep, the house creaked and groaned in the wind, but they chalked it up to its age. The next day, they explored the town, visited a local bakery, and hiked a nearby trail. They returned to the house tired but happy. As Sarah was preparing dinner, she noticed something strange, a dusty old door in the kitchen that they hadn't noticed before. Curious, she tried the handle, but it was locked. "Hey Tom, did you see this door?" she called out. Tom joined her, peering at the door. "No, must have missed it. Maybe it's just a storage room." They shrugged it off and continued with their evening. But that night, as they lay in bed, they heard faint whispers and footsteps. Tom reassured Sarah that it was probably just the house settling again, but he didn't sound convinced. The third night, the noises grew louder. The whispers seemed to echo through the halls, and the footsteps felt like they were right outside their door. Sarah couldn't sleep, her heart pounding in her chest. Suddenly, there was a loud bang from the kitchen. They both jumped out of bed and ran to see what had happened. The previously locked door was now ajar, revealing a dark staircase leading down into a basement. A cold draft wafted up from the depths below. Tom grabbed a flashlight and cautiously started down the stairs, with Sarah clinging to his arm. The basement was cluttered with old furniture and boxes, covered in cobwebs. In the far corner, they saw a small, makeshift bedroom. The bed was unmade, and there were children's toys scattered around. On the wall, there was a series of old photographs. Sarah squinted at them, her breath catching in her throat. They were photos of different families, all taken in the house. In each photo, standing in the background, was a pale, ghostly figure of a child. Tom and Sarah exchanged horrified glances. "We need to leave now," Tom said, his voice shaking. As they turned to leave, the basement door slammed shut with a deafening bang. The flashlight flickered, and they heard the whispers again, louder and more insistent. The temperature dropped, and they could see their breath in the air. Suddenly, a small figure appeared at the foot of the stairs. It was a little girl, her eyes hollow and dark. She stared at them, her mouth moving as if she were whispering, but no sound came out. "Why are you here?" she finally said, her voice echoing in the small space. "This is my home." Terrified, Sarah and Tom ran up the stairs, pounding on the basement door until it finally gave way. They bolted out of the house, not stopping until they reached their car. As they sped away, they saw Martha standing in the driveway, watching them with a sad, knowing look. The next morning, they reported the incident to Airbnb and the local authorities. But when they returned with the police, The basement was completely empty. The photographs were gone, and there was no sign of the little girl. Martha denied knowing anything about what they described, insisting she had never seen the door before. Shaken, Sarah and Tom left the town and vowed never to use Airbnb again. Months later, Sarah stumbled upon an old newspaper article about the house. It had belonged to a family who disappeared mysteriously 50 years ago, leaving behind their young daughter. Her body was never found, and the house had stood empty for decades until Martha inherited it. To this day, Sarah and Tom wonder if the girl's spirit still haunts the house, waiting for her family to return, and they can't shake the feeling that Martha knew more than she let on. The Mirror House. Melissa and Kevin had been planning their anniversary trip for months. They wanted something special, a place where they could disconnect from the world and reconnect with each other. The Airbnb listing for the Mirror House seemed perfect. Located deep in the woods, it promised solitude and an unusual artistic experience. The house was famous for its mirrored exterior, which blended seamlessly with the surrounding forest, creating a surreal and enchanting atmosphere. When they arrived, the house was even more stunning than the photos. The mirrored walls reflected the trees, sky, and their own astonished faces. It was as if they had stepped into a dream. The host, a middle-aged woman named Eleanor, greeted them warmly and gave them a quick tour. She was friendly but a bit eccentric, speaking in a lilting tone and emphasizing the unique features of the house. One thing stood out. Eleanor warned them not to touch the mirrors inside the house. "Why not?" Melissa asked, curious. Eleanor's smile faltered slightly. "They are very delicate," she replied, "and they can play tricks on you. Best to leave them alone." Melissa and Kevin shrugged it off, attributing it to the host's quirky nature. They spent the afternoon exploring the house, which was filled with antique furniture, beautiful artwork, and, as promised, mirrors of all shapes and sizes. Each room had at least one large mirror, and the effect was both beautiful and disorienting. That evening, they enjoyed a romantic dinner on the deck, watching the sunset reflect off the mirrored walls. As night fell, the house took on a different, more ominous feel. The mirrors seemed to capture and amplify every shadow, every flicker of candlelight. They retired to the bedroom, where a large, ornate mirror covered one wall. Kevin was asleep within minutes, but Melissa lay awake, unable to shake a sense of unease. The house was silent, but the mirrors seemed to hum with a life of their own. She could see their reflection in the mirror, the bed, the dresser, the open closet door. Wait. The closet door was closed. She was sure of it. Melissa sat up, her heart pounding. She looked at the mirror again, and the closet door in the reflection was indeed open. She turned to look at the actual closet door. It was still closed. She shook Kevin awake, trying to explain what she saw, but he groggily dismissed it as a trick of the light. Frustrated and scared, Melissa got out of bed and approached the mirror. As she neared, she saw movement out of the corner of her eye. In the reflection, the closet door was opening wider, and a dark figure was emerging. She spun around, but the closet door remained closed. The figure in the mirror stepped closer, now fully visible. It was a distorted version of Melissa, with hollow eyes and a twisted smile. The doppelganger raised a finger to its lips, as if to shush her, and then pointed directly at Melissa. Melissa screamed, backing away and stumbling into Kevin, who was now fully awake. He saw the terror in her eyes and followed her gaze to the mirror. At first, he saw nothing unusual, but then the reflection shifted. His own distorted doppelganger appeared beside Melissa's, mimicking his movements but with a sinister expression. Panicking, they grabbed their belongings and fled the bedroom, slamming the door behind them. They ran through the house, the mirrored walls reflecting nightmare versions of themselves that seemed to grow more malevolent with each passing second. Finally, they burst out the front door and into the night. They drove to the nearest town and checked into a motel, too shaken to discuss what had happened. The next morning, Melissa received a message from Eleanor, asking if everything was all right. She replied with a terse explanation and demanded a refund. Eleanor apologized profusely and assured them that she would refund their money immediately. Curious and still shaken, Melissa did some research on the Mirror House. She discovered a series of disturbing stories dating back decades. Previous owners and guests had reported seeing doppelgangers, experiencing vivid nightmares, and feeling an overwhelming sense of dread. The house was said to be cursed, the mirrors acting as portals to a darker, twisted reality. Melissa and Kevin never spoke of their experience again, but the memory lingered, a chilling reminder of the night they encountered their own worst reflections. The Mirror House remained listed on Airbnb, its mirrored walls silently waiting for the next guests to uncover its secrets.